Tiger.
Tesla stock is in free fall, but meanwhile, some big events like Tesla releasing full self-driving in China, and it's going viral with over 1 billion views. Plus, Model Ys are now being delivered to customers. Tesla is also now hiring for production of CyberCabs. A lot to discuss and analyze. So we've got the bulls here with us today. I've got Tesla Boomer Mama, the Queen, Alexandra Mertz. You got Jeff Lutz, the Mr. Incredible, the Rational Bull. And our special guest this week is Matt Smith from Rebellionaire, the Analytical Bull. So guys, the stock has fallen. We're going to cover these main topics. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about the crash, what's going on, what's impacting it. But there's some really good news with FSD being released in China. It's actually gone viral. Both Elon and Ashok Goswami responded to that. And then we got to talk about the other things, Model Y, CyberCabs, and things that are about coming. So this is the stock right now. It's at a few minutes ago, $285. It fell another $5, right? I mean, we were just at $300 yesterday, and now we're 285. It seems to be continuing to fall. Alexandra, you got some data on this. Do you want to start us off on what's happening with the stock?
Sure. I mean, I'm not at all stock trading, looking at it on a day-to-day basis, but I bought some yesterday at 291. And one of the reasons I bought is because I saw there were a lot of short sellers in the stock on Monday. So I thought they had, finished. And you may want to show that on that Fintel chart that I pulled out this morning, which showed that on Monday, the aggregated total volume between what's logged by FINRA and the ones that are, outside in the black market went up to 71 million shares. So that settled down to 52 million yesterday. So I had the feeling that it was a bottom at 291. Well, I was wrong because it went to 280 and now to 285. But for me, these are now, purchasing times. I told you, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I still didn't invest my 401k. So I did half of that yesterday, and we'll see for the second half in the next couple of days, weeks, we'll see. So all this, obviously I posted my purchase because I want to be always very transparent when I do stuff and share that. I think I got 1,200 likes or something like that. Yes, I'm bragging. But I also got a lot of DMs of people worried and, oh my gosh, Elon political and whatever. So that made me think last night what I really want to tell these people, because, sometimes I'm in my day job, I'm doing 30 other things. I can't really reply in detail to these people. So I thought I'd do it today. So the first thing I want everybody to really deep down for yourself clarify is, what are Elon's intentions? Do you think Elon's intentions are good or bad? If you come to the conclusion that you think Elon is evil and bad, don't stay in a stock where he is the key person, right? But if you think that actually Elon has good intentions, and Elon may not always execute in a polite, wonderfully smooth way, but does it the way he does it, then see it as opportunities like I do. But this basic understanding on whether you think he is good or bad, whether he has evil intentions or not, is something very personal. It could be politically motivated. It could be that you don't trust the guy, whatever. I do. Obviously, you all know that I'm a fangirl, but it is really important to get that straight within yourself, because you're going to drive yourself mad and ill if you have constantly to fight this. Now, obviously, now we have a combination with Elon and Trump and all the whirlwind stuff. They're doing 5 things a day, and it's just very, very aggressive. But if you understand, or if you appreciate the intentions, it gets much more bearable. Then you have to understand that Trump's enemies now got Elon's enemies. I mean, we always had the media complicated for Tesla, but now it's just out of this world. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen those headlines that there are 50% less sales in Europe. Yeah, guys, we're ramping a new car, which is the best-selling model. So yeah, there's going to be a couple of rough months. And actually, we told you after the earnings call, the last earnings call, that 2025 is going to be a rough year because there are all these transitions, new cars coming up, and this is difficult. But that's not why you're investing. You're investing because you think on an horizon of 2, 3, 5, 10 years, there is the potential. If it is all linked to the next 6 days, 6 weeks, even 6 months, then don't be in the stock. That's just not possible. And then the third point comes with this market manipulation. So that's why I showed that short seller chart. And who do I know who these guys are? I mean, I have no idea who went short for short periods, obviously, because we had the next day a certain correction, not to the levels of last week, but still. So what can we all?
Oh, you went mute, Alexandra. You went mute.
Here I am again.
Yep,
okay, all right. Yep. So if you're, and especially my good moment, right? Here it was all building it up and then I go mute. That's so me. Yeah. So anyway, so what can we do? We can buy stock if you're ready for that. We can buy cars. We can help other people buy cars. We can subscribe to FSD if we haven't subscribed yet. We can subscribe to X. That's a little expense. But we also can help the Tesla retail stores. This violence that's going on that has now moved from a verbal violence to a real violence. I mean, there are cars that are getting slammed, that are getting stones thrown on and all that. That must really not be good for the morale of those sales representatives in the Tesla shops. Go there, buy them some croissant, bring them some coffee, just show your support in a positive way. And I think each and every one of us can do it, either with money, if you want to buy the stock or the car, or subscribe to FSD or X or whatever. And I really want to call out the Republicans that are maybe listening to this, because, you have him now. We're giving you Elon, us Tesla shareholders who love him so much, we're giving you Elon to sort out the mess that the Congress couldn't sort out for 30, 40, 50 years, okay? But now do help. Do help. Your next car should be a Tesla. Test drive them now. Go to the shops. Do things to support him, because that is really your way of paying back. And I mean it, and I think it's really important. And then the last thing is we have to constantly denounce the media. When we see articles that are wrong, well, go there, comment on their X account. Don't get tired of it. Stay polite, but make sure whenever they are distorting the truth that you are there to call them out. So thank you. That was my rant of today.
No, thank you. Fantastic rant and appreciate it. Lots of things that we can do as Tesla investors to help, as you've been pointing out. So I was speaking to Nick Gibbs yesterday, and he pointed out that Tesla stock is fallen, but it's not the only one. If you look at the market in general, a lot of things are soft at this point. Obviously, though, we cannot ignore what's happening with the protests and the backlash to Doge. That's certainly having something to do with this. And as we pointed out, Model Y transition, and also just the expectation of Q1 is going to be soft. Jeff, what's your opinion on what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Mag 7 is in a bit of a downdraft, but Tesla is definitely, in terms of it has outsized acceleration. There's no question about it. And I think we should just, should have that realization. A couple of things come to mind. One is, when the current financials, and we don't like to talk about it all the time, but we should. When the current financial situation isn't extremely solid, then the FUD works. The FUD doesn't work when they meet or exceed shipments, earnings, and so forth for the current business. Remember, Tesla is really all about, if you look at its valuation, if you look at the forward valuation on the company, it's really about autonomy and bots. But in the process of getting to autonomy and bots, if the current financials, aren't very strong, then the FUD works, and the FUD it multiplies. That happens. So we're seeing that right now. I've called out a couple times this whole January. Let's look at 30 days of sales in January, and let's draw all kinds of conclusions when none of the input variables are being looked at. And anybody with any kind of operational understanding of just basic supply chain, basic manufacturing, or just common sense in physics would know if you've drawn down your inventory and you don't have the cars available to sell in the beginning of the next month, then your sales are going to be lower. And they did that for a reason, because they're doing the transition to the new Model Y. But there are some other examples too out there, and it's not clear. I mean, I think everybody's just trying to jump to one silver bullet answer. It's this. And especially if they're on a particular platform and they're upset with, with what Elon himself is doing or so forth. They want to just, okay, it's this, and then this is the reason for everything. When in reality, there are multiple reasons for these things to happen. I will tell you, just looking at this objectively, that the primary reason that January sales are soft and that has gone viral, it's gone viral. You have political pundits that have nothing to do with automobiles, nothing to do with tech, that are forwarding this around and making it go viral because it serves another purpose for them. But the reason that those sales are precipitously lower is that it's math. Model Y is 70% of production, and 70% of production was drawn down to zero. And I explained this on one of I think one of our one-on-one shows, Herbert, and I'll just do it for 30 seconds here. When you're doing a product transition like this, you kind of have to put it on a number in terms of weeks of production that will be impacted. Typically, when you're doing it, depends on the number of parts and the complexity of the change, but it could be a few up to several days, or it could be a couple of weeks of stacked downtime that occurs. And when supply planners and when manufacturing people are planning out and with the CFO of the company, they're planning, okay, what's the impact of this transition? What is it going to be? They would typically produce a set of goalposts, and the clean way to think about this is you have to think about it in terms of number of weeks of production impacted. Model Y was produced at about 25,000 units per week of the prior version, 22 to 25K per week of the prior version prior to this cutover. So what you do is you say, if this is going to be a 3-week cumulative transition with all the factories combined, then you knock out about 75K of production. If you think it's going to be closer to 4 weeks, maybe it's closer to 100K. Tesla was sized up for about 480 to 520,000 total units of production. So if you knock 75 or 100K off, that's where we're going to be. So that's current quarter. That's currently what's happening. There's this gap between analyst expectations and some of the other estimates that are out there. And I think that's causing some pressure on the stock. There's tremendous FUD out there. And with the whole Mag 7 having this downdraft, Tesla will certainly accelerate in any kind of downdraft like that. So I think that's part of what's happening. There's definitely some people, shriek back and it's brand damage. I'm sure there's some that's happening, but you really have to go to primary causes, prioritize the data, look at it, and then understand it in context. What's permanent, what's temporary. And we had the same conversation, if you remember, in Q1 of last year. We had the Red Sea attacks, we had the Berlin factory power system attack, and we described on your show, Herbert, when a factory has to go down and when material logistics are inbound or delayed, how many units are roughly impacted when that happens, and when it has to re-ramp, how much time it takes for that new material to get to its final, and the final cars to get to their final destination will sometimes fall outside of the quarter. So I think that's what's going to happen here in Q1. I'm not actually super pleased with how the Model Y transition's happening. I think it's a step forward improvement from Model 3, and I think the Tesla team is working as hard as possible. But my guess is if you ask the Tesla team, could we go faster? Could we do this better the next time? The answer is unanimously going to be yes. And I think what we would want is we would want basically a faster, more concurrent rollout in the factories, but we are where we are. So I think what's going to happen in this is I think you do have a lot of demand for the new Model Y. And I think the order book is probably extremely strong. But what's going to happen is much of this supply, as they really get up that curve, is going to fall outside the deliverable window for Q1. So I think if you're kind of short term and you're in this 90-day window of like, what's the stock going to do? You really want to key in. If you could ask an investor question, ask, what rate per week has the new Model Y returned to in terms of production? Because that will be very telling in terms of what they see as demand and where they're at from an execution perspective. But I want to leave this final point. The FUD works when the current financial situation isn't solid. And there's other companies like this too that have had these big drawdowns. They may be pre-revenue, or they may just, they kind of have more of a forward outlook in terms of, the transformation of their business versus current business performance. All of those have come down as well. And this is typically not a good time in February. But all that aside, I think this is going to come down to a bit of how Tesla executes over the next couple of months. And of course, it's really all going to be about the transition to unsupervised autonomy and bots. The final statement I made, and I think Alexandra made a number of good points. The final statement I would want to make is all this. There's a lot of concern about Elon and the White House, Elon with government. And you can criticize the statements and some of the approach of how anybody does anything. But just realize, as Tesla investors, if he's not there doing this, there is no autonomy, there are no humanoids. The regulatory framework we have today would not allow a company to execute and get those products out at scale. That has to be fixed, and his proximity to the White House will help enable that on a broad scale across multiple industries.
Yeah. Jeff, thank you very much. Appreciate that you covered a number of the things that are impacting the stock crash, right? Impact the backlash of Doge. And I really like that you quantified the days, how many days it takes for Model Y transition and what that could do. That was something I've never heard anybody talk about. So, the stock fell in the last 5 days, I think $67, and it fell in the last month, $111. Now, like you said, it's 90 days, lots of things. We can't predict why it's doing this, but all these things are contributing to it. And then, Matt, do you have any kind of ability to quantify anything else, or is it just, again, we don't know?
Well, the one point I wanted to make is you made the comment or the question, I guess, initially about, okay, markets are down in general. Isn't this just kind of Tesla being a reflection of markets in general being a bit down? And I don't think that's the case. There's in finance and stocks, there's a concept called beta, and this basically for every 1% that the stock market is down, how much is an individual stock down? Tesla, depending on how you calculate it, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but Tesla's beta is around 1.5, maybe up to 2, depending on the methodology, which would imply, all right, if the stock's down, if the market in general is down, let's say 10%, then Tesla should be down, 15 to 20%. Tesla's down a lot more than that. So I think this is much broader or much more specific to Tesla than just kind of general market skittishness and weakness, kind of concerning around macro. Tesla really did ramp up. Like the stock price, it just exploded after the Q3 results and after the election. And right now we've just seen all that significant increase in value that happened in a really short period of time. I mean, let's remember that was about a month and a half where Tesla went from about 280 where it is right now to what was the high? 480 something, 480.
840, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, almost $200, and now we've just given that back basically. So my sense is that like the narrative, the kind of story stock that Tesla is, that's what's driving it a little bit more than macro right now. I think macro is a bit of an accelerant, but I mean, I was just looking at year to date, the S&P is actually up 1.3%. Amazon, just as one example of the Mag 7, is down 3%, and Tesla's down 25% year to date. So I don't think this is macro so much as the Tesla specific drama and narratives that are going on. But I think as Jeff very eloquently pointed out, you got to focus on what's long-term changes, what's short-term, kind of disruptions in their model and in their supply chain. And I think when we focus on what really matters, it gives us a lot more confidence to kind of make the sober buying and selling investing decisions that we really need to make.
Now, the problem is that we can focus on what matters. We just had several big news. Model Y is now being delivered to customers. You got FSD going in China, being released in China and going viral, and yet nothing. The stocks continue to fall. So I know this is short term. This will be, recognized later. But right when you're like, I think somebody said it earlier, right? When the I don't know, I can't remember the words you guys used earlier, but it was the right thing, which is when the sentiment is so low. For growth stocks, it doesn't matter what kind of news you put in. It won't be registered until you've got, the sentiment back up again, or the money risk on is back on again.
Yeah, so yeah. I think like focusing on what matters, it doesn't mean that when the good news comes out, the stock's going to jump. I think it's more like, do you have the comfort level and the confidence as an investor? So as we've had this, pretty significant drawback, I'm feeling extremely comfortable. Now we've got some clients who are freaking out. We've got some clients who are also feeling comfortable, but I think you can't manage these swings, but you can manage around them a little bit. And so we did warn clients that we thought that the scenario like this was possible 2.5 weeks ago. And so I feel like we've kind of done what we can to anticipate the changes that are coming. And now we've got the confidence, I think, of looking at what's going on with FSD. And I think regardless of all the noise going on right now, I'm thinking ahead to August, September, October, and what's the narrative going to be at that point when they've got several months of robotaxi rides and anyone can go to Austin and just experience it. I think we're in an entirely different kind of sentiment headspace when we're there, and so that's what I mean about kind of focusing on what matters.
You gonna say something, Jeff?
No, I agree with that. The momentum stock. So as the stock is shooting up, as the stock was going over 400, people were talking about 500. As it went over 450, people were talking about 600 and 700. And then if you remember the drawdowns last year and the year before, as it was drawing down the 150, people were talking about 100. As it went down the 100, people were talking about 80. Nobody knows what the stock is going to do. Any one person on X or anybody you see, they don't know. So what you have to do is you have to separate the sentiment, the fundamentals, and understand what you own. And once you understand what you own and once you understand your risk tolerance, then you'll be fine. But to listen to people saying, well, I can see, I look at the 0.618 fib and I think it could do this. That is helpful support information about technical movement, accumulation of stock. But if you only have that and you don't have the fundamentals and you don't understand the fundamentals of what you own, you're in trouble. So I would just say know what you own and understand it from that, and you'll be fine. But I can't, anybody that comes up here and says, well, I see it going to whatever now, 220. I mean, just it's everybody's going to say every number in the world. It's based on the sentiment and the direction of the stock. That's just how it is. You have to block that out, and you have to understand what you own.
The number one thing that people are calling me and saying, look, I wish Elon wasn't doing what he's doing. You're going to get, so I want to ask you guys, how much do you think is going to impact the sales of the cars? But also some people are saying, oh, when they roll out robotaxi in June, you're not going to have anybody wanting to, be part of that. And they're not going to go ahead and, buy, take a ride from that. It's like, I don't agree, but what do you guys think?
You mean in Austin, in Texas? People would not want to take the car because of Elon being efficient with Dodge?
Yep.
Well, they may as well walk, right? Or take an Uber and pay 3 times more. I mean, I'm a little bit tired of having to justify reasons for illogical behavior of people. If that's the way they want to go, be it, right? Should Tesla now change something? Should Tesla employees slow down FSD because maybe some lunatic, doesn't like it or will not use the robotaxi because it's a Tesla? I mean, all this is so childish. I was always against the fact when the right, was against Bud Light or Target or whatever. I think that these whole issues of voting with your wallet because of some political stance is completely ridiculous. Make up your mind. If you like Target, go to Target. If you don't like Target, don't go to Target. But because they may sell, I don't know, swimwear for transgender children, what the heck? Move on with your life. I don't understand this stuff, and I don't understand in the case of a robotaxi. If you can have a robotaxi where you're safely brought from spot A to spot B in a clean car without a driver, and your alternative is have a car with a driver that's older and that is not as clean or whatever, well, then make up your mind. And if it is important for you that you make a political statement, use the other car, spend more money. Nobody cares. It's all good.
Yeah, it's hard to it's non-zero, Herbert, and I think a lot of people get kind of wrapped up in that. You should just land on that answer. It's not zero. It's some number of impact greater than zero. We can't quantify it. But when people start thinking irrationally, is where they get themselves in the trouble. And I keep going back to the January sales commentary. The rational way to look at January sales commentary is to have a conversation about the fact that they drew their inventory down to below stock out levels exiting December. That's a real number. That's a real number. And when you start up in the new year and you don't have your below stock out levels, people cannot go buy your vehicle, and you extend the time frame for them to purchase a new vehicle because you're transitioning. That is what really, so you have to think of priorities of issues and factors. And if you don't think logically, then you will get yourself into trouble. If you think logically, you'll be okay. So nobody's saying that it's zero impact. By the way, nobody's also measuring the net effects too of potential, added purchasers. But it's clear that it's some number greater than zero. But if I were looking at this logically, and I literally came from another planet, and all I knew is I knew basic operational supply chain knowledge, I would say, okay, what were their sales in January? What was the beginning inventory? Okay. What was the ending inventory? Okay. What was the stock out levels? Okay. What was the competitive sales in that same month, in that same time period? Did they have seasonality? What was their inventory position? You would go look at these factors and you would draw a logical conclusion, but people aren't doing that. So my only point is to apply logic in all these situations. I go back to Q1 of 2024. That was 386,000 units shipped, if people remember. It was supposed to be a number 40, 50K, 60K higher, I believe, that was projected. And they had these issues, but immediately people just jumped to demand. And we clearly described what was happening from a supply perspective. And we clearly said that if there is not a demand issue, then it would be made up in the next quarter. And in the next quarter, Tesla exceeded sales and shipment expectations. And then, the stock went on a run. So nobody knows for sure of what's happening here, but it's probably more than one factor. But you have to look at the primary factors, tertiary factors, and so forth. So in this case of brand damage, in general, these things tend to be temporary. But we have to see, and we have to understand where it goes. But in my kind of just thinking logically, people tend to respond to money and value. And if Tesla produces a robotaxi at terminal costs that get to 3 or 4 times lower than Uber, and it's safer and it's a better experience, people are going to use that product. And this noise, this temporary noise with these people organizing here or there, that will be drowned out by more people are logical than illogical, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And I just wanted to pull out this comment because that's so right. I mean, I hear all the criticism of Elon and whatever and Tesla and stock. I get it. But when you start throwing names around, Nazi, fascist and all that, dictator, then that's my level. And then I block you and I don't discuss anymore, because either you've gone down in a really, really strange rabbit hole, or you're doing this on purpose to amplify your message. But neither is constructive. And so we just have to get over that. We just, stay on a rational level. Tell me your criticism of Elon and what you don't like. But as soon as you get into the name calling and into these exaggerations that have nothing, prove me one point where Elon is a Nazi. Prove me one point where Elon is a racist. All this is just so wrong, so completely wrong. And, on that level, you're not going to win. That's just, you're not going to score even the slightest point.
Okay. I think some of the points you guys have been making.
Yeah, Herbert, I would just say it's okay to be critical too of Elon and his statements, Alexandra. It's okay, but I think you have to go back to, and it's rational, but you have to go back to is the greater good in eyesight? Are we going to a better place? Our cost structure is going to come down. Our product's going to be more safer. Is he trying to do the right thing? And if you believe he's trying to do the right thing, and if you believe the output of his goods and his work will produce better outcomes for people on net, then that's what you have to look at. But you can be critical along the way of how anybody does anything, and I think it's appropriate and it's okay. but you have to look at what does end state look like a year from now or 2 years from now. And if you look across all these factors and what he's trying to do around safety of vehicles, around solving these problems, around making the U.S. more competitive, making taxpayer dollars use of that more efficient. If you think that these things are happening, you think we'll be at a better place on the other side of this, then that's what you have to focus on. And I mean, you can be critical of the approach, but you really want the end state. If you don't have that end state, but you have people just acting perfectly, well, what does that really get us? I mean, where do we really, we don't go anywhere.
Okay, well, so as Tesla investors, right, we don't want the stock to fall. We don't want Elon to say things like Canada's not a real country. There's a lot of things we wish he didn't say. But he is, at the end of the day, I look at it net. And as an investor, if I'm looking at as an investor and I'm looking at this, why do I want to be invested in Tesla? Signal versus noise, what does it matter? And the things that matter are, yes, volume sales of cars are going to go down. End of the day, the amount of cars sold less because of what he's doing is going to be impactful, but it's going to be minuscule compared to the giant leap that's going to happen to the stock when you have solving autonomy, getting robotaxi rolled out, when you got bots. Those are, and of course, energy is still continued to boom. All these things. So at the end of the day, yes, I wish he didn't do it, but I look at it. So let's go to the next big story. This is the interesting thing was this week we had several stories that were pretty big in terms of the fundamentals or in terms of the signal for Tesla stock, right? You got FSD going in China, shocked all of us. It is approved in China. All the cars that have FSD in China are able to test it out and use it in multiple cities. It is not the dumbed down version. It is, it's basically the same version 13.2. And it went viral. I'll show you, and we'll talk about that right now. Model Y is now being delivered to customers in China. This is ahead of what they said. They said they were going to happen in May. It's actually happening now in February. And we see CyberCab hiring already happening now. So Ray for Tesla, one of the people that really follows what's happening in China, said the general consensus from Chinese FSD testers, and he's been reporting on the bloggers and the YouTubers who are showing some test drives. The general consensus is that FSD is extremely human-like, unlike any other Chinese systems, and confident. Driving is silk smooth, like a seasoned human driver, cautious to pedestrians and mopeds. Areas of improvement, the recognition of bus lanes, bike lanes, and traffic lights, picking correct lanes to go straight or left light, turn left at intersection. This is the reasons why they needed more data to be able to solve these kind of problems, and they're using simulation to try to solve that. Elon said, I heard it was a leading topic on Douyin. Douyin is a Chinese version of TikTok. And Ashok Goswami, who's the vice president of autonomy, said apparently 1.3 billion views. There is, I can just probably show you hundreds of videos that are happening right now of Chinese, drivers testing it. Here's an example of a very tight scenario here. I'm going to, get it out of there. And the car is doing incredibly well. So it's able to maneuver and work well in very, very tough conditions. A lot of these scenarios in a lot of these cities are just completely complex, and yet the car seems to be performing just fine there. And this is another video here. So, anyways, it's a great rollout, and it's so far being well received, and it is being talked about. This is big news. How are you guys viewing this?
So I'll just say this is one of those events that I've been looking forward to for a long time. FSD has been a US only thing for a long time, then a North America thing, only thing for a long time. And I've been watching with great anticipation when we'd get regulatory approvals in Europe and China, and trying to get an estimate of when that would be. Because obviously, if you've got this like super neutered version of FSD, which is what we've had in Europe and China and most of the rest of the world, for many years now, it implies that take rates are going to be pretty terrible in those locations. So this is a pretty meaningful catalyst in the short-term earnings, I think, because it stands to reason that you're going to have some deferred FSD revenue recognition. I think it's going to be reasonably small, but the bigger thing is that take rates are going to go up. So this is, I think, a very impactful short-term catalyst. So, later this year, I think we should actually start seeing some meaningful improvement in FSD take rates worldwide. And for that reason, it's been like one of these things I've been really trying to get an estimate of. This just came out of nowhere, it seemed, where there was all these rumors of Tesla or of China kind of using this approval of FSD as a negotiating tactic with the trade war with Trump. Concerns about the Teslas not being able to get the videos out of China and trade them and train on the GPU clusters in the United States. And so for Tesla to basically just ship this when nobody was expecting it, I think is extremely impressive. So I think it's a really meaningful improvement to the company's financial performance in the, let's call it, medium-ish term. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact in the next quarter or two. But I think we're going to start seeing take rate tick up. And one of the things I've really been looking forward to is the company actually starting to disclose take rate or number of FSD subscribers, something like that will give us some metric to track how overall use is increasing. And so this is a really big deal. And if you would have told me 6 months ago that on the day FSD was released in China, completely unexpectedly, by the way, that the stock would be down whatever 6% or whatever it was yesterday, I would have laughed. So this is kind of this is very big news, and I think it's being underappreciated just how big of an impact this is.
Yep. Herbert, where are you?
Stick on me. Hi, guys.
Yeah, I think I'm back.
You want me
Can
to
you
keep
hear
going
me?
on my monologue? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you
Here we
back?
are.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've got to.
What was the number? It's now 5.1 million.
I got to go for 5 minutes.
No problem at all. I think Herbert has, and I'll try to take his picture off. How do you do that? Here. Okay. So it's 5.1 million cars now, right? That are eligible, that are on the roads and can switch on FSD with a touch of a button. I mean, nobody else can do that. When I hear, it's always funny when these moments are when everybody is in a panic and it's all negative, then you suddenly hear, oh, there are also FSD competitors. Well, show me one competitor that has 5 million cars on the road that can switch on FSD, that are prepared, that are ready for it. There is nobody. And any other system is going to be very costly and very complicated to implement. I'm not saying that there are not some model cars out there who can do it, but nobody has this infrastructure ready. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's great points by you and Matt on that. I think there's more happening here than meets the eye. I think there's more going on than just videos from the internet. Leave it there. This is truly impressive what Tesla's doing. But I want to call together a couple of key points. One is, if I were to kind of predict what could be happening in the future, I think there's going to be some economic disruption coming with FSD and robotaxi, but we talk about it ad nauseum, but there could be something near term for personal car ownership. It's starting to happen in the US. So in my state, I have Tesla insurance, and my Tesla insurance plus a $99 FSD cost, my Tesla insurance rate reduction is so low by driving an FSD, it pays for my FSD. So there's a bundling effect, even though it's not offered as an official bundle. But if you remember in I think it was July 30th, I looked up, in 2024, Tesla registered a new entity in China called Tesla Insurance Brokers. And Tom Zhu's listed as a legal representative of that. I wouldn't be surprised if over time there isn't a move, again, similar to the US, to increase the driving capability of the vehicle in China and therefore take down the probability of an accident occurring, and then bundling that together and offering that as a solution. I mean, how else are you going to, unboxed, I think, is another approach to compete with Chinese hardware manufacturing, but this is a different battleground. This is a different playing field than trying to do battle in Western Europe or battle in the US. I think Tesla is well equipped from a hardware only perspective to do battle in those in those other continents. And then they've got FSD coming, and then they've got robotaxi coming. But I also think that there could be, again, this economic disruption with insurance. And again, don't look past this Tesla insurance brokers, and maybe how this whole thing could potentially come together as a bundle. The other thing to think about is just the size of Tesla's fleet in China, and you touched on it, Alexandra. And it doesn't mean that 100% of those people are going to go buy FSD tomorrow. They don't have to. The point is Tesla already spent the money. They already deployed the CapEx. And it was such a low amount of CapEx for a vehicle to do the inference that it's embedded inside of every vehicle. That's millions of vehicles on the road right now in China have it. And of course, they're starting with hardware 4 for this. But even with the hardware 4 vehicles alone, the amount of robotaxi or just FSD capable product in China dwarfs any other kind of robotaxi business that's there right now. So just keep in mind, every other competitor that wants to enter and has to compete and is competing and already has a robotaxi service now, to get close to the amount of capital that Tesla's already deployed, they have to spend a tremendous amount of money to do that, to catch up. So just keep in mind, as the software solution really folds in and this thing really improves, Tesla's already at a significant advantage from a capital deployed or capital release perspective out there. They don't have to climb the kind of wall that others have to climb. So I always go back to look at the product and look at the business model together. Don't look at them in isolation. The FSD videos are fun. They're fun to watch and they're impressive. But the business model to me could be more impressive for what I just talked about, capital deployment and potentially an insurance bundle.
Yeah, the two biggest leaders in China, right, is Baidu, is considered to be even bigger than Waymo. They have 2,000 cars, and they're showing it in multiple cities. Then you've got Huawei. They did this incredible video that went viral, out of spec, showed this one Huawei car that is doing incredibly well. They only are available, right, Jeff? You're saying this, that they're only available in the premium version of Huawei cars. In the meantime, with Tesla releasing FSD in China, with FSD's official rollout in China, the number of Teslas eligible for the FSD has risen from about 2.6 million, which is what U.S. fleet is, to now 5.1 if you add the 2.5 million cars in China that is now FSD capable. So Tesla now has 5 million cars globally. 2.5 million cars in China is FSD capable, which means that they're robotaxi capable. As long as you got regulation, as long as the owner decides that they want to put it into the network, millions, 2.5 million cars. So where's the competition? It's like you have to think about that way. Yeah.
That is exactly it. And when I hear people saying, yeah, but hardware 3 and AI 4 and when hardware 5, yes. And for the other guys, where is it? Which version is it? What car is it on? Nothing. So it just, our problems are problems they're going to have in 3 to 4 to 5 years, if they get that far, if they have the billions that they need to get there. So This is, it's all good. And I think we should acknowledge that other people are making efforts in the bots, in the FSD field, in obviously in EVs. Mind you, EVs, I don't know what the Lucid news really means, that Lucid is continuing what's happening and all that. So on the EV side, I still, show me somebody that is building profitably EVs and, has the margins that Tesla can sustain. And that is going to be the subject for all the other topics as well. Tesla has shown them, so it should actually be easier to copy, yet they still can't do it. So, it's all good if you see only danger from all sides, but also recognize the lead that Tesla has taken. And Hachim to Matt.
So I was just doing some quick math because I'm a numbers freak. And I think one of the things I'm trying to figure out is what's the earnings impact of this? Because this, as a surprise, this might not be baked into analyst earnings estimates. So if we've got 2.5 million vehicles that are now suddenly eligible, how many of those would actually opt to purchase it? There's actually not an FSD subscription price in China, so they would have to purchase it.
It's 8,800. It's 8,000. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so purchase, but you can't subscribe, and that's one of the things that I think is hurting Tesla's financials a little bit right now, is that they're offering the subscription, so you're not getting that upfront earnings per share and cash benefit that you do with an FSD sale. I think Tesla's a lot more. I think Chinese customers are a lot more tech heavy than their North American counterparts. So it would seem logical to me that when the capability is on par with the American experience, which I think it is now, the take rate should be higher in China, I would think. Now, maybe not right away, but over time, I would think that that would be the case. And so my quick math was, all right, 2.5 million vehicles at, let's just say, a 5% take rate, which I don't know if that'll happen all in one quarter, but I think it's a reasonable assumption for that fleet size. And if you assume it's only 75% recognizable, then that gets to $825 million of earnings impact, which is pretty substantial. So this could be something that hurts or that offsets a bit of the pain that we're going to see in Q1 with the lower Model Y output and all the issues that we've spoken about earlier in this show. So that's something I need to think about a little bit more, because I hadn't really been baking that into my own model. So little live math right there.
That's exciting. Live math from Matt. Maybe that can be its own little segment.
Math from
Math. We'll bore everyone.
Oh, that's great that you did that, actually, because that's exactly what's happening. And it went viral. It went viral in China, and they're all looking to be, right, to have that one edge in tech. So you're right that I think the percentage of uptake there will be even higher than the US.
Well, and I think one of the things that a lot of people have been sleeping on is the potential for FSD on its own to be a driver of sales with the vehicles. There are probably a lot of tech-heavy people in China and elsewhere that want the most advanced tech. And honestly, in the last couple of years, before version 13, I think FSD was not a reason to buy a car, to buy a Tesla. But now I think it very much is. And so I would suspect that that'd be a huge tailwind for Chinese customers to be opting for Teslas instead of their competitors in the future. So I'm pretty bullish about this the more I'm thinking about it.
I'm going to make a prediction before Jeff and Alexandra jumps in. I predict, and I know you guys are going to say the same thing, a Chinese automaker is going to partner with Tesla very soon. I think. The reason is that, first of all, there's hundreds of Chinese EVs out there. It's a bloodbath. It's a red ocean. Michael Dunn has been telling us how many are dying. They're all trying to one-up each other with new tech. My car can do this. My car can do that. And they know that they need to, how do you, if you're not BYD, if you're not Zeekr, if you're not one of these main brands out there, how do you get back up there? Partner with Tesla. Now it's up to Tesla to decide, no, you're too small. Maybe they won't be able to do it. But if it was a perfect partner, they'd be jumping right now.
Don't you think it's Hyundai?
I agree with you. I do think it could be Hyundai. Yeah, the CEO just came out last week.
Right. Did you get that, Jeff? So 2 seconds ago, it was a Chinese. Now it's Hyundai. Did you see that? I was doing that. Chugga-chung, chugga-chung.
I mean, he doesn't even. There's not even any twitch in his face. It's just all continuous. It all just keeps coming out. It's amazing. Herbert's incredible.
I'm so Herbert Ong.
Well, just last week, the Hyundai CEO came out and said that our strategy is to partner for autonomy rather than build it ourselves. So that's
could be a 1A and 1B. It could be
okay. And so now I throw your third one. Is it going to be Ford? Come on, Herbert, tell us. Chugga-chung now.
I think it's going to be Chinese. I really still think it's going to be Chinese over. It's just the problem is that you got to be the big player. So Hyundai is a perfect partner for Tesla. Tesla would love to have Hyundai, I believe. But of the Chinese players, none of them, it's really just BYD and a bunch of small ones. And so that's my concern, is how do you pick one that maybe Xiaomi, right? I got to look at their numbers.
I mean, the advantage they have is their manufacturing is so new, right? They're so much more flexible than the US and the Europeans will be in implementing. I mean, now Jeff is going to explain to me that I'm completely wrong because I'm just thinking this too simple. But I think they're just so much more tech savvy, newer plans that they can, and used to copy. So I think they could implement it quicker than any US or European partner. Yeah. But what do I know? And I mean, from the Europeans,
that's true.
Them again. Oh, I got a. That's true from Jeff. That's my name.
I agreed with everything you said on the show. No, they move. I mean, literally, they move significantly faster than U.S. and Western European countries or companies. And then I was surprised at the Ford CEO statements about the quote unquote bells and whistles that are going in the more expensive vehicles for autonomy, and they can't afford it in the lower end vehicles. So why wouldn't you platform that strategy across your whole fleet and develop the lowest cost strategy and approach? So I don't think actually Ford is in the serious run. And if I were Tesla, I mean, I would be challenging a Ford and say, well, show me a vehicle that you do more than 5K production or 10K production in a month of, and then maybe there's some. I mean, when we start getting to 50K a month, 100K a month, then it becomes interesting. And I think that's where maybe some of the Chinese could potentially become interesting. Hyundai potentially could become interesting as well, and they move faster. So this is going to be a thing of how much money do they want to burn in R&D? What is the burn rate that they want to continue to swallow to say that we have our own autonomy effort? This is, to me, is akin to the 2015 to 2024, the Tesla killers are coming, and they had to keep flashing PowerPoints and rolling out the wood and clay models of EVs to keep kind of the investor enthusiasm in about their companies. I also feel they're kind of holding on to, like, we have our own autonomy thing and we're going to figure this out. But then you look under the covers and you ask the basic question about where's the compute coming from, what approach are you using, and again, where is this NVIDIA car that's driving everywhere and doing everything at scale? I know we're starting to see YouTube videos of various things, but that's not something that's even being done at prototype scale at this point, which tells you the lead time for putting anything like that in production is some extended period of time out. So anyway, just I don't think it's Ford. I would agree, Chinese and Hyundai. So
I just have breaking news. Tesla filed the transportation permit in California. I'm trying to send you the screenshot. Give me a second, Herbert. I'm going to send that to you, to your DMs, if I can get there.
In the meantime, this is
great. That means this for unsupervised robotaxis.
In California is now approved. Yeah.
Well, no, they filed it.
Filed?
It's not approved yet.
Oh, filed.
It's filed.
Okay.
I just sent you the screenshot.
Yeah.
That's good news, because last year, I'd say about the same time of the year, there was all this press that, they can never do that. That was in preparation of Robotaxi Day when that sort of started to leak. And they had, the media had contacted the California DMV authority who gives, no, it's not the DMV authority. It's one of the California state authorities who gives those licenses, because it's a people carrier license, transportation carrier license, and whatever. So anyway, so now it's done, and that's good news. There we are.
Yeah. Again, that's perfect, because that speaks to the every step. What matters is take a look at whether or not AI is moving forward, if robotaxi is moving forward. And this is what Rashtra Goswami posted, right? And he said that we're in September, we're going to accomplish all of this. And every one of these was hit in September, or maybe one of them was like right a few days after September. Then in October, they added these two. And then, just like they've been saying, they got FSD in China approved in Q1. There's a lot of concern. We didn't know if they were going to hit it. And now they actually did. And then I'm not sure if we're going to get FSD in Europe. That's regulatory. They're the worst regulation countries about regulation. So, but that just shows you that they're hitting everything that they're saying that they're going to hit. So far, so good.
So is Elon time a thing of the past?
No.
Too soon to call? Okay. It strikes me that, like, we're now hitting all these milestones. I mean, I used to take every single thing that he would say.
That's Ashok time. This is Ashok time.
He's not saying it anymore. Like, he's not giving the time frames anymore. Maybe that's the change.
Yeah. Model Y is being delivered now in China. That's another, China, they went ahead of schedule. They could have been sandbagging, right, Jeff? They could have said, it's going to come in May, but they actually did realize it could come earlier. So companies, customers in China who've ordered the new Model Ys are now starting to receive these.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been just a complete disaster to announce the vehicle and then say you don't get it for 5 months, and nobody would, especially in that culture, like when they know that there's a new version coming out, it's all over their local social media. That nobody, I mean, I mean, literally, it's even more viral than here in terms of Osborning. So Tesla has to be careful. I love the new Model Y. It is an amazing looking vehicle. They have to get the production rate up very quickly. And my guess is if you ask people inside of Tesla, they know this, because you can have the perfect marketing rollout for transitioning your product to not Osborne yourself. And I think they did with what they did in January. But if you don't follow up with supply behind it, you could Osborne yourself. When I go to the Tesla US website today, I see versions of the old Model Y, and then I see the new one. And a lot of more tech forward people are go and buy these vehicles, and if they see that there's a new version coming, they're not going to spend $60,000 on this current version. They're going to wait for the other version to come. So you got to get the speed up. You got to get it up in the US. It's okay to be critical. And people say on these shows, like, we're never critical of something going on in Tesla. This is an area of where they really got to focus. And I think they can really make up if there's any supply shortfall or shipment shortfall in Q1. They can really make it up with this product. That's, again, if you're the other side, like if this was kind of a disappointing looking product or featured, but all the reviews, everything is just off the charts positive. So they took their best product and they literally made it better. Nobody's actually pointing to any major flaws in this product. So I think Tesla investors should be really excited about this release. We just got to get the supply up.
Yeah, just to remind everybody, full self-driving is now available for Chinese cars, Teslas, and it went viral, like viral, billions of views. So this is very, very good news for Tesla, and Tesla sales in China is not, dropped at all. I just saw a new data point from Roland Percher, right? He showed that the Model 3 sales in China are still very, very high, and they're doing just fine there. So there's no drop off. And the only reason the Model Y could be a little softer is because of this transition at this point. But now that they're delivering it, and the rumor is that they're at 2,000 cars per week. Jeff, is that a good number for you, or do you wish it was higher? That Giga Shanghai is now producing China, 2,000 Model Ys per week. Yeah,
that's a good that's a good rate for where they're at in the curve. The whole global model, to get back to where the other Model Y was, they got to get 25K or so output rate per week, just to give you an idea of what the climb looks like. That's what people just seem to understand of this kind of transition. You're essentially taking this machine that was running at 22 to 25K per week, and you basically flatten it to zero. Now it's different in different sites, and it's staggered. But when you apply the cumulative effects, and again, when supply planners look at this, I mean, this could be 3-4 weeks of where you take the peak week and you lop it off. That's just how it works. So you would take 3 or 4 times the 25K a week and you lop it off. And some of that demand is perishable, because there are people that they get their tax return in the US and they want to buy a car in the early part of March. And if it's not there, they're going to go buy something else. So some of that is perishable, but a lot of it can be made up, especially if the product is better.
Can we have a live math? What is 25,000 per week equal to per day? Easy. Come on, Matt.
Not fast enough in my head. So 3571.
Pretty good.
Yeah, 3,500 a day.
All right. Last comments. I've got to run down. I got a guy waiting at the front door, and I've been pushing him off. Comcast, my internet is acting up. Last comments, guys. Stock crashed. FSD in China. Model Y is being delivered. CyberCab is hiring. Things are looking good, right? I mean, both. No.
Yeah, all good. And in that article, actually from Bloomberg, I sent you the screenshots, and I'm going to publish them as soon as we're done. They name Atlanta as the next city where they're launching autonomous robotaxis. I mean, maybe you knew. I didn't know.
No, I did not. That is new news. You broke another news. Atlanta is going to be.
I read an article.
Gotcha.
Alexandra has this inflow of info coming in. She's got her finger on the pulse.
Okay, well, that actually is a really good point. I mean, guys, this is a special show, I think. Thank you very much, Alexandra, Jeff, and Matt. You guys, we got great information comes from Alexandra. She shared with you the shorts. She does a lot of research, and she also gets a lot of data, like people sending her information. Then you got Jeff, brilliant, knows more than most people do about deliveries and the numbers. He quantified for you exactly what the impact is for Model Y. You got Matt, who can do some simple math on his head in seconds. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you. Follow Matt on Rebellionaire, by the way. They believe in Tesla. If you're a Tesla stockholder, you might want to check out what he does there. Thank you, everybody. Follow CyberBulls. We'll do it again next week. Bye, all.
Thanks, Herbert.
Thank you.